And so before I begin, I want to say what an honor it has been to work with the JPD board, the JPD staff, to serve as your district executive this last 9 months. Has it only been that long? And to have served the very brief time that I did with Lily and Crispin. It has been amazing to see her impact upon this district and upon so many leaders, upon so many people who in one way or another she had been mentor for, and helped them to move into leadership in their congregations and in their communities and in their lives. And though I only served with her for a brief time, it has been my honor to walk amongst all of you who served with her longer. Thank you. If y'all don't know, I love PowerPoint. In the United States Army, I was once awarded the PowerPoint Ranger badge. So there will be some interesting transitions amidst the slides. So first is that how transitional a year this has been. These are the major points that I want to hit in talking with you all for the next short while about the Joseph Priestley District and of how we are moving forward into some of the differences and changes that are happening with a change in leadership amongst the district executive. It has been a transitional year for me, moving here from Southern California to serve as your district executive. It's been a transitional year for me moving away from serving in heritage ministry to coming back to serving as a member of a district staff. And as many of us know, as ministers, we grieve our congregations when we leave as much as our congregations hopefully grieve us. But all that transition has been beautiful and wonderful. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about some of the program and service delivery changes that we are instituting, both starting back in September, on how we can better serve your congregations as both district and regional staff. Some of the different methodologies which we are bringing into our work of how we can be present with you. I will run through some of the highlight points of the annual budget, and I will take a few minutes to talk about my vision for the future for the district, for how we provide the services and the connection and the interconnection that our congregations need from us. And then we'll do a little recognition and gratitude and a few awards. Sound like a good time? Yeah. All right. Can you all read that? Mm-hmm. In any church renovation project, the pastor's primary goal is the building of bridges. So it has been something of a renovation. Whenever there is a change in leadership and a change in philosophy and a change in how we are approaching work, there is some aspect of renovation to it. And much of my time over this last year, over this last 9 months, has really felt like the building of bridges. Has felt like my meeting with many of you congregational lay leaders and ministers. How many of you have I met with either in person or in small groups over the last? See, it's been an amazing journey the last few months. It has, and building those bridges of relationship. It's been a building of bridges of relationships between congregations as we're bringing some clusters together that are already formed and bringing some other clusters together that are in their nascent forming. And seeing that interaction between congregations as you're able to share community with one another. There's also been some building of bridges, as some depth work with me and the Joseph Priestley District Board and the Joseph Priestley District staff. And also the building of bridges, I think, between the Joseph Priestley District leadership and the leadership of the UUA congregational life staff. And that has been, I think, a beautiful part of this year, to be able to build those bridges amongst one another. So I want to start off by talking, I got better ones coming. I want to start off by talking about what the vision and mission of the Joseph Priestley District is. This is not my vision and mission, this is your vision and mission as promulgated by your board of directors. And just so you know, they are not a board of trustees. They're a board of directors. They're intended to have an active role in guiding the vision and mission of our district. And so our vision is having connected, growing, strong, justice-seeking congregations in the Joseph Priestley District. That's a great vision, right? We want to live into that, right? Our mission, the mission of the Joseph Priestley District, is to develop and strengthen a community of healthy congregations striving for diversity of theology and culture, deepening our sense of mutual accountability to each other and the movement. Now, how do we do that? Those are some pretty big things, right? So the district board, you want to see that one again? Back it up. So the district board sets what's called, under policy governance, which is the style of governance in which we operate, the district board sets a global ends policy. Now this is what I, as your district executive, am accountable to. This is how I am judged. This is how I am graded. This is the standard to which I am held. Does this make sense? So the first part of it is the Joseph Priestley District of the Unitarian Universalist Association exists to connect, grow, and strengthen our congregations at a cost within the resources available to the JPD. Okay? In order of priority, the district executive promotes healthy congregations by, this is my job I'm about to tell you. Number one, fostering and deepening connections among congregations and between congregations in the district, region, and continental UUA. All right? Number two, supporting the growth of existing congregations and the development of new congregations in underserved areas, like, I don't know, the urban young adult community of Washington, D.C. If you're wondering why we're supporting Sanctuary, it's number two. Number three, engaging, inspiring, and developing lay leaders, including youth and young adults. And number four, encouraging and supporting their social justice work. So I don't set these ends. These ends are set by your board of directors. And if you have ideas for alterations or ways they can continue to develop and think, I encourage you as the delegates to have conversations with your board of directors about ways that those ends can reflect more what you feel you need from your district as congregations. Amen? All right. So it's been a year of transition and renovation in some ways. As a new district executive, I'm here in a bit of a new role for the district executive. Now this is actually, I believe, and I'll state my opinion of this is not so much a new role. This is a recognition of the way things have actually functioned for many, many years. So there has a long time in the past, I think more than a decade ago, there was a time period in which the district executive was not fully employed by the UUA. In some parts of the country, there was a part-time arrangement, part-time by the district, part-time by the UUA. And that left this model of co-employment. This model where the district executive was in some ways employed by both. But the reality is, for the last more than 10 years, district executives and congregational life staff have been fully employed by the UUA within the UUA staff structure, and that there were different negotiations about how that supervision was done. So in this new model, what we're simply acknowledging is that that is more of a contract for services model than it is a co-employment model. It's that the Joseph Priestley District Board has contracted with the UUA for an executive who will provide executive services to the district. But that executive is fully an employed member of the Unitarian Universalist Association. And that means that I am responsible, where to the Joseph Priestley District Board, I am only responsible for how well I meet those ends within the limitations that have been passed. Under this new model, I am also responsible for how well I am doing that within the wider movement of Unitarian Universalism. And I'm also responsible for how well I'm managing my own self-care and professional development as a minister. Let me just say again, I don't see, others may disagree with me. To me, this is not a huge difference. This is what we have functionally been doing within the association for many years. What we're doing now by recognizing this is naming it. Is naming that this is the style in which regional and district staff have been functioning once they became fully employed by the UUA. I'll ask for questions later, but is this making sense? All right. The other thing is we've had a deeper relationship that's happened in the last year, I think, between the Joseph Priestley District Board of Directors and the UUA Congregational Life staff, where the Director of Congregational Life, Reverend Scott Taylor, has been at multiple board meetings with us this year. The regional lead has been at all of our board meetings, so that we are integrating our work as a district supporting our congregations within the wider movement of Unitarian Universalism. So that we have there on hand the resources about what is happening in other districts around us. And that other districts are aware of what's happening within our board of directors and within our programming, so that we are integrated beyond the borders of the Joseph Priestley district. Another part of the transition is, I've really adopted, or tried to adopt, a rather relational style for district and regional staff with our congregations, and that means to be more present. I think I'm averaging about 2,500 miles a month on my car at the moment. That, I don't have a plane, so I can't. Richard Speck had a plane, If you want to give me a plane, we can talk about that. But although I would really like one of those Google self-driving cars, honestly, that would be great. I could work while anyway. But it is the goal of several of the program changes is that we're able to be more present. It is that we're able to be more in relationship with your congregations, to know ahead of time what is happening in your congregations, so that we are able to be supportive of you on the front end rather than responding on the crisis end. Amen? So we're moving, and part of that is moving to a generalist model for our congregational life staff, for our Joseph Priestley district staff, and away from the model of having one generalist, the district executive, and a team of specialists. We're still going to have some specialists, but we're moving towards having more people who are qualified as generalists, can help congregations on a variety of areas instead of just being able to specialize on one or two. And I'll talk about that in a minute. We have a focus on building relationships between congregations. We've talked a lot about that in the programming today. Not for congregations to merge, although if you want to do that, that's up to you. But just that we're building relationships across those congregational borders to get out of our silos as Unitarian Universalists. One of the sermons I've been preaching on the road is one that says, even our largest congregation is a small pocket of Unitarian Universalists compared to the rest of society. If we are going to have an impact as a movement upon this culture, upon religion, the development of religion in America, upon social justice issues, it's only going to be by getting out beyond the walls of our congregations and connecting with one another.
Amen.
Amen. You all can say amen. I'll tell you this is I have a little bit of a past. If there's something I say that you think is great, you say amen. If there's something I say that just freaks you out, you can say, oh me. All right. So a programming-centered approach to budgeting, and I'll talk about that in a minute when I get to the budget. A goal of building a functional, unified staffing model for the region. And one of my highest priorities for this year has been meeting everyone. And that has been an amazing goal that I will not achieve, but it has brought me to a new hobby. And this new hobby is taking photos of your sanctuaries. I have been I've made it to almost 50 of our congregations so far in the last 9 months, and I have just fallen in love with this idea of taking photos. From First UU Baltimore, to the Acatink Unitarian Universal Church in Burke, Virginia, to the wonderful congregation in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, the Lehigh Valley congregation, to the newly, and I should be using this, right here, the newly remodeled sanctuary for the Berks County congregation in Reading, Pennsylvania, newly remodeled with support from a Chalice Lighters grant.
Amen.
And from First UU Wilmington, to the absolutely wonderful yurt. This is a yurt sanctuary. It's at Sugarloaf congregation in Germantown, Maryland. To Universalist National Memorial Church in Washington, D.C. Look at the comparison between those two. And the congregations are nearly the same size. To the congregation in Silver Spring, Maryland. To the one that's 3 miles from my house, but took me 6 months to get to in Milk Creek, Newark, Delaware. To the wonderful chapel at Cedar Lane. To this, probably my favorite Christmas sanctuary design ever in Eastern Maryland. It's just gorgeous. And this great organ that's up at Towanda, Pennsylvania. And this is the sanctuary at the congregation of the Shenandoah Valley in Stevens City, Virginia. And this right here is Fairfax, our congregation in Oakton, Virginia, the U congregation of Fairfax. And the River Road congregation. And this wonderful outdoor chapel is at Mount Vernon U Church. And this is the great congregation at Reston, Virginia. And those are just a few of my hobby of taking these photos and putting them on Facebook. Which I have just, who's seen a few of these before? Who's been to some of these congregations? Who's a member of one of these congregations? So it's been great to be with you all and to preach in some of your congregations and be present. And I have been honored every time I've had a chance to meet with the board or to meet with leadership or just to meet with membership. It's been wonderful. It's my privilege. So I'm going to drop into talking about some program and service delivery changes. The first one, and the big one, and one in some ways we're highlighting here at this district assembly, is the transition to what we're calling the primary contact model of congregational support. The idea is that every congregational leadership will know the name and phone number of a UUA staff person who is directly responsible to being their UUA primary contact. Their entry into all kinds of support that our association provides at all levels of the association. And if you are here, you wanted your primary contact. If you're in, who's in the Northern Virginia cluster? Raise your hand. The Baltimore cluster, the Delmarva cluster, or the Western Maryland cluster. I am your UUA primary contact. Who is in the Greater Washington cluster?
Capital cluster?
The Capital cluster.
Yeah.
Pat Infante is your UUA primary contact. Who's in Central Pennsylvania? And who is in Greater Philadelphia? And who is in Northeastern Pennsylvania? Mark Bernstein is your UUA primary contact. So the purpose of the primary contact program is that for us to get that you as leaders know who you pick up the phone and call. And also for that person to know that they are able to be aware enough and to be intimately involved enough in your congregation that they can become proactive about providing the resources you need to live your mission and vision more than we necessarily need to be reactive as staff. Amen? Amen. So our goal is to eventually get to about one staff person for 25 congregations. And we're not there yet. We're close. The one person that's really over that, I think, is me right now at about 31. But our goal is to get down to about 1 to 25 congregations. The primary contact becomes the congregation's first stop for all support that you may need. We will probably refer you for a lot of things, and we may even refer you to another member of the regional staff if they've got a better skill set, or refer you to somebody at 24 Farnsworth in Boston. But we want, rather than you having to navigate the labyrinthine mess of everything that is available to you, that's our job. Amen? Amen. All right. So assignments are made through the congregational clusters. We decided to take the existing clusters and make those how we did our assignments so that we're able to begin using those clusters as both a vehicle of connection and a vehicle of program delivery. Because we want to do programming not for one congregation, but for 4, 5, or 6 congregations all together. Part as a cost-saving measure, but also because we really do believe that you learn more when you're in the room with other leaders in other congregations than you will if you're just in the room with the people you see every Sunday.
Amen.
All right? So, and only unified staffing, which I'll talk about in a minute, really is what makes this level of support for our congregations possible. So I'm going to move on to proactive program delivery through congregational clusters. The vision of this, as I said a minute ago, is that clusters really began initially as just a vehicle of social and connection and knowing who are you use. We want to have you still coming together as clusters, but we want you to come together for programming. We want you to come together for training. We want when you come together, there is, whether it's a primary contact or another UUA staff member, or even a consultant we bring in from outside, as we just did for the Northern Virginia cluster, bringing in the Congregational Stewardship Network. For a wonderful workshop, and this is kind of an ad, on all the different types of stewardship that are beyond the annual pledge campaign. So like special asks and capital campaigns and all of that. We want you to come together for that reason. We want to be able to do leadership training and programming offered for congregations together. And that a commitment I'm making is that I want to fund at least 2 specialty workshops for every cluster every year at your request. And to have regular district and regional programming offered through the clusters like the Baltimore cluster, the partnership we have that we're currently offering, the Healthy Congregations training at Towson in just north of Baltimore. So let's talk about unified staffing model. So the staff of the 4 Central East Regional Group districts, the Joseph Priestley District, the Metro New York District, the Ohio Meadville District, and the St. Lawrence District, we now really have worked as staffs to understand ourselves as functioning and supporting our congregations as a unified staff across those lines, so that we bring a greater set of experience and a greater set of resources that work for all of our congregations. That you're not dependent upon just what I know, or not dependent just upon what Pat and I and Mark know. That we are we're meeting together and working together as a unified staffing team. We have had meetings over the last couple of months with the full-time employee Joseph Priestley District staff. And an offer was made from the UUA that we could move them to the same model of employment that I am under. That they could become UUA staff on a contract for services with the Joseph Priestley District. And in those consultations, our full-time staff said that that was something that they would like to do. I'm going to clarify, in each case, they were given the opportunity to remain Joseph Priestley District staff that might not have been able to continue indefinitely. There are trend lines that would make that difficult. But in each case, after some discernment and discussion, they came back to us with that being yes. And if you want to ask them, they are Andrew and Christina, and they are both in the room. And so as of July 1st, our full-time Joseph Priestley District staff will be becoming UUA staff. That will also include Jillian Conway, who is part-time with the Joseph Priestley District and part-time with the Metro New York District to move to full-time. We will still have there was somebody clapping at that. That's amazing. I did not expect applause there. We'll still have our program consultants on stewardship, on racial justice, on some of the adjunct staff work, being able to be consultants for the Joseph Priestley District. Do you understand this? I'm not asking for agreement at the moment, I'm just asking if you understand. Okay? So, what that does is that makes sure that they have full access to being part of the wider scope of the Unitarian Universalist staff, and there's not this division line between our staff and the UUA staff. We are the UUA staff. And I think I have the name of it. So all regional staffing resources are available to support all of the Joseph Priestley District congregations. So, we'll talk about another part. We just talked a little bit about what primary contact was. Primary contact is basically 1/2 of the role of our congregational life staff primary contacts. Each of us is also serving as program manager in certain areas of congregational life that we have certain interest and experience in. And the role of the program manager is to ensure that all the primary contacts are trained and have the resources necessary to support you on most things that relate to that program area of church life. So basically, they're named as our trainer within the staff, the inside staff trainer. They manage volunteers and events that are in their program areas. They develop programming and training for that area that all of us may use or that they may present at larger events. They look beyond Unitarian Universalism for developments in that program area that they're responsible for, and they connect with leaders of each congregation working in those particular program areas of congregational life. And after our next set of workshops, you're going to be given an opportunity to go meet with some of the program managers in areas of congregational life that you are interested in or that you have leadership in. So what are these program areas of congregational life? So these are some of the current program manager areas that your district and regional staff are fulfilling for the region. So leadership development, which is Reverend Renee Rahutsky. Staff transition support, which is Andrea Lerner. Membership and growth, which is Mark Bernstein. Multi-site development, also Mark Bernstein. Justice Ministries, I have the honor of serving as your regional program manager for Justice Ministries. Congregational Governance is Reverend Renee Rahutsky. Faith Development is our own Pat Infante. Youth and Young Adult Ministries is the Reverend Evan Carvel-Zemer. Stewardship and Finance is our own Pat Infante. You see how this works? I am the regional program manager for Worship Arts. So our goal as a staff is that all of these areas have one of our primary contacts has taken responsibility for making that their area of training amongst us and creating broader vision and training for how we support all of our congregations. Is there understanding about how this works? Yes. All right. It also lets us know how we can be connected to what is happening in other regions and also what is happening in the wider UUA movement. I am on a call regularly about justice, all of the justice programs of the Unitarian Universalist Association, so that I, as the regional program manager, know what is coming down the pipe, what the UUSC is working on, and what other groups are working on. That's kind of the name of the way that contact works. And then there were some more I didn't name, but all of those are areas we currently have, and there's a few more. So, the honest one I want to talk about for program delivery changes is I want to come back and focus on clusters. It was Andrew, our Director of Youth and Young Adult Programs for the Joseph Priestley District, who gave me the phrase clusterization more than regionalization. Because the vision is for regionalization to work, I believe. What we need is the strongest clusters we possibly can. I'm going to tell you that the Joseph Priestley District is, in my opinion, already too big as a district. We are functionally two districts, as attested to by the fact that we're the only district with two separate Ministers Association chapters. We have two separate religious educator chapters that really have a dividing line at the Susquehanna River and the Maryland-New York border. That in some ways, there's some wonderful benefits to our being this big, and there are some challenges. And so the vision is that the greater relationship, the more intimate relationship, is going to happen at the cluster level. Is that our goal is to build strong relationships between congregations that are geographically close to each other, and also strong relationships between congregations that share affinities with one another, such as large church congregations, and small church congregations, and congregations facing transitions. And congregations. So all of our thinking and programming is about how do we build relationships between congregations so that they are because in some ways, for whom was this a challenge to get here? I will tell you, when I served on the Central Midwest District staff, District Assembly had 300 to 400 people every year. We are much bigger than the Central Midwest District is. And I think part of that difference is because of how both diverse we are and also the cultural difference between the southern part of the district and the northern part of the district. So, our goal is that a cluster is more, one of the things is that we have what I call a cluster council. And the cluster council is not the whole cluster. They are representatives from each congregation that come together to plan programming and to do work together. Who serves on one of the cluster councils that comes together at once? So we have some of you're all on this end of the room. Was there an email?
They cluster naturally.
They cluster naturally. So they come together, they are not, the cluster is not that group. The cluster is the congregations. But that group is the leadership group of people representing those congregations that help to make the decisions and do the planning and do the work. One of the things we've done is to have the UUA primary contacts integrating with the cluster representatives. And all clusters, this is one of the things that I think I've clarified in the last year. All clusters are bodies of the district and region. They are kind of committees of the district and region. And what that means is, if a cluster says they want to do a program, that becomes a district program. And it gets access to all of the district resources and district support. For example, the Northern Virginia cluster just recently approved a summer camp, a Unitarian Universalist summer camp, that they are holding for their youth amongst the congregations of Northern Virginia. And so the Joseph Priestley District is managing the registration, we're managing the funding, we are bankrolling the program, although we hope you break even, and, and we are providing other levels of support because it is a cluster program. Therefore, if it's approved by the cluster council, it is a district program and receives district support. Amen?
Amen.
All right. So, I'm going to make a transition. Ha! If you can't read it, and now our guest pastor will preach on transformation. So that's a lot of stuff, isn't it? That's a lot of things for me as a new district executive to be moving through. I will tell you that I have, in sometimes, felt like I was pushing that change, and at sometimes I have felt that I was being dragged along behind that change. It was not my intention to be moving as quickly as we are. What I am sensing is that there is a desire to move. And I'm sensing that from the Joseph Priestley District Board leadership. I'm sensing that from the ministers and colleagues that I've been meeting with, and I'm sensing that from the lay leadership. I believe that this level of transition is sustainable, doable, and that it fits with the ends that I have been charged with as the district executive of the Joseph Priestley District. And there are days I stand before you and I feel like the robot, right? So I also just want to hold up that I'm naming that this is a fairly rapid pace of transition to some new models and some new thinking, and that we have to move into it with an experimental spirit. There are things that will not work. There are things that will need to be tweaked and changed as we move along. What I'm committed to is that I will continue to dance. I will continue to tweak and move and change as we learn into this transition. Amen?
Amen.
All right. So, let's talk a little bit about the district budget. So, I've moved into the budget with a little bit of a different lens than my wonderful predecessor. And I'm going to tell you, I should have said this earlier. The Reverend Dr. Richard Speck and I live 2 miles from each other. We see each other in the grocery store. We have the same veterinarian. Yeah, it's a thing. He and I are currently co-teaching the Healthy Congregations training in Towson. And he has agreed to serve as a member of our Joseph Priestley District Adjunct staff. What I am committed to, there is no such thing as the title District Executive Emeritus, but that's the way I'm functioning in my heart, is to be able to, and he chose not to be here this year so that this was my stage. And I just want to hold up him for that. But as I've moved in, I've made a few other alterations, and one of them is a different way of looking at the budget. So what we've done is we have simplified and streamlined the budget that you are seeing. This is actually the exact same format as what the staff and board use in our monitoring of the budget. So instead of having 2 separate formats for the budget, we have moved them into one, and it being the one that we use the most, that we use amongst the staff and amongst the board. I've moved to some more conservative budget income estimates, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I have under-budgeted the pledge income in this year's budget, and I'll talk about why. I have also moved to have the budget reflect reality as closely as possible. I love the phrase faith-based budgeting. I don't know that I love its reality. It was an opportunity to fix a couple of things. It was an opportunity to, our admin staff, there were some perennial issues in some of our forms and some of our spreadsheets and some of that we've used this opportunity to fix a lot of that and clean it up. It was an opportunity to remove placeholder funding, so putting funding in the budget for things that did not exist as a way to try and draw us to doing new things. It's not my style. And to correct some systemic problems with budget documents and make it clear and understandable for everyone to be able to understand. Our goal is that this new budget looks a whole lot more like the budgets you as leaders work with in your congregations. So that the experience and knowledge that you have in that realm translate into your leadership in the Joseph Priestley District. really like my slide transitions, don't you? All right, so here's the first thing. On income, there was a $13,670 reduction in budgeted expected pledge income from the approved 2014-2015 budget. This is in part based on my trying to reach a recommendation from the Joseph Priestley Finance and Audit Committee that we move to a 10% discount of what we expect to come in from what actual full fair share would be. In prior years, we have used an 8% discount. And the goal is to move to a 10%. Up to this year, I've made it to 9.2. My goal is to be at 10% next year. Also, this is taken in light of us having some conversations with especially some of our larger congregations about two things. One, that there have been significant reductions in their membership rolls. In some ways, some of our largest congregations have in the last year or so gone and done what many of our smaller congregations had done before. And that was take a hard look at the membership rolls and see who's actually a member and who's not, and to really clean those membership rolls up a bit. It's resulted in about a 600 member decrease in the last year between all of our congregations and around 1,800 members in the last 4 years in the Joseph Priestley district of our societies. There is also a $600 reduction in the budgeted expected pledge income for the budgeted expected program income for from the 2014-2015 year. I've made a very, very conservative estimate on what we will be able to bring in regarding programming that we produce that you all pay a fee to attend, like the district assembly. We have a fairly low attendance for this district assembly this year, but we also have had some high attendance in some other programs and low attendance in others. And as I talk to congregational leaders, what I'm told is that it's becoming more and more difficult for members to self-fund their participation in those kind of programs, and also that it is more and more difficult for them to find the flexibility in their congregational budgets. So I'm anticipating that we will be providing more training that is at no additional cost. And we'll still do some training where we ask you to put some to put up some money for that specialty training. But I'm anticipating we're going to need to do more of the programming training that is at no additional cost. So I think we'll probably come in with more income than I'm projecting, but I would rather under budget than over budget. And a $4,000 reduction in expected income from the adjunct staff peer consultancy program for the same reason. That we see more of our congregations are unable to hire a consultant, even at the lower rates that are wonderful adjunct staff consultants. And if you're not hearing me, we have wonderful adjunct staff consultants who can do great work with your congregations at a lower cost than you can get them from any other consultancy service, church consultancy service. Wonderful ones. And congregations are telling me that they have less capacity to do that. And so I am budgeting lower. We'll also be using our adjunct staff for more things that we provide, and I'll talk about that later. Our UUA staff grant programs are around the same as in previous years, and the UUA program grant funding is around the same as in previous years. So, staff and leadership expenses. There's a moderate reduction in the travel budgets across the board for staff and lay leadership. I initially thought this was going to be a higher reduction, but it's worked out that we've been able to, in part through unified staffing, be able to ameliorate some of those travel budget cuts. The exception is in the board regionalization travel budget, which was increased for this year, as we're expecting that the board members will need to do a bit more traveling as they relate to the regionalization process in the next year. The transition of the adjunct staff coordinator position to a joint program manager consultancy support position. Let me tell you what I mean by that. One of the program manager positions that will be held by Pat Infante is a regional peer consultancy program. And so we are transitioning Sandra Greenfield's position as our adjunct staff coordinator, which is a quarter-time position, into an adjunct staff position supporting Pat in that transition. And we have added funding to the adjunct staff program to allow us to do that. So though the money is not under staff anymore, some of that money has been put back in the adjunct staff program so that we can make sure we have an excellent transition from a district adjunct staff program to a regional peer consultancy program. The benefit of that to the congregations is that now you're going to have access not just to the adjunct staff of the Joseph Priestley district, but to all of the peer consultants within the Central East Regional Group. So the right consultant for the right time to be able to come to your congregation. And the overall increase of the leadership budget of $200. I don't know why I put that in there, but there was an increase in the money I'm giving you all. The money I'm giving the board and our committee. I'm not giving it to you all. One of the things was that there has been a non-filled electronics coordinator position on the budget for some time that was never hired. So that's kind of that faith-based budgeting, that aspirational budgeting. So I took that off. So that money was usually moved into other programs, and we just went ahead and moved it to the program budget. All right, major points from program expenses. An overall increase in the adjunct staff budget by $6,400. That is primarily the monies for the transition to the regional peer consultancy program. District office expenses were reduced by $3,000 from the 2014-2015 budget. I want everybody to turn around and embarrass Christina and Jillian for that. We increased the denominational activity line by $500 to encompass a request for support from Murray Grove. And district program expenses were reduced by $16,869.68. Most of that reduction is because we now are intending a lot of the programming we offer you to be provided by your UUA primary contacts and other members of the regional staff. We are already paying for that. We are already paying into the unified staffing budget. So rather than having that those programming, if that programming is coming from regional staff people that we are already paying, it allows us to reduce that much the overall nature of that program. Does that make sense? All right. So district budget bottom line. The expected reduction in district income is $50,772 off of last year's budget. This is, like I said, a more conservative estimate that if it comes in higher, then those additional monies will be used to rebuild the reserve funds that are at a fairly low level right now. And I'm required by policy to try and have the district reserves at 10% of budget. We have never made it in the history of this district. We are currently, as of the last report, at 6.9% of budget. My goal is to reach that 10% within 2 years. So one of the ways, part of my having the conservative estimates and doing staffing in a more conservative way is to be able to meet the policy that I am required to meet under our limitation policies. District expenses are reduced by $37,309.58. So you see, income went down more than the expenses. The difference between that is that last year's budget had a projected surplus of $13,506.50, and I'm planning on a surplus of $44.08.
All right. Gotta spend it all in one place.
Exactly. And just to be honest, that surplus did not materialize last year. It was projected, but it did not materialize. We were either at or below, depending on how you look at the numbers. So we've managed to increase programming and congregational support, I believe, in the face of shrinking district-only resources. And the way we've done that is through the unified staffing program, is through relying heavily and sharing resources with the other 3 districts. I don't think that we could do it without that. Let's take a moment to talk about my vision for the future. I'm going to have a continued focus, probably a near obsessional focus, on building relationships between congregations, because honestly, I think that is one of the keys to the future of Unitarian Universalism.
Amen.
Is that we have to be together. We can no longer be solely in the silos of our own congregations. And we'll be looking at all kinds of ways we can make that happen. Electronically, in person, all kinds of different visions and dreams for that. We're moving towards cluster-based guidance to district and regional staff on programming. What that means is that we really think first about offering programming in partnership with clusters. That when you call and say, Reverend David, we would really like a program at our church on stewardship. And I'm going to say, great, have you been to a cluster meeting? What does your cluster think about that? Now, I'm going to say that as proactive. I'm going to say one other thing. If there is a reactive need in your congregation, if there is a specific issue that you in your congregation are struggling with that may be in the moment, you do not have to find 2 or 3 other congregations that are having that same issue to get staff from your primary contact and other regional staff. I want you to hear, we want to do proactive workshops and trainings and programming among many congregations, and if you have a need where you need support from your UUA staff, don't let finding other congregations stop you from calling us. Amen? Amen. All right. So, I have a vision for multi-congregational cluster events in congregational program areas. The vision of this is, and this is something that the Joseph Priestley District has really pioneered over the years. Who has been to the Worship Arts Festival at some point? Who's been to the Racial Justice Conference at some point? So really, that idea of having large events like this one, large events that are focused on one area of congregational life, that brings people together to focus on that for 2 or 3 days. Bring all your worship associates and your choir together for a day or two to focus on doing worship better. I want to do more of that. I want an annual conference for every congregation that's facing a staff transition in the next year or 3, where your search committees can go and get training, where they can talk to other congregations about best practices. I want that to happen every year somewhere in the region. I want an annual justice conference, where we are building the beloved community. And I want an annual faith development conference. I want OWL teachers to get together and share resources, because gosh, we need them. Who's an OWL teacher? Yeah. Amen to all of you. I want this kind of programming where we bring people together across these areas of congregational life. I would love a church finance and stewardship conference every year. So I would love we're doing president's roundtables, and we're going to continue that. And so there are so many areas that we're really going to focus on creating ways that you can connect with other Unitarian Universalists in other congregations who share similar aspects of congregational life with you.
Board boot camp.
And board boot camp is something else. So we're going to do that every year in every cluster, the board boot camp, so that we can help you all who are board members to learn how to be a good board member. And better integration of youth and young adult ministries and district programming. Look around. So we didn't do a good job of that this year. And I'm going to own that we didn't do a good job of that this year. And part of my vision is the connection that we will. And the same thing with a better integration with the people with multicultural and intercultural awareness in district programming and events. So with that, I'm going to move us to some thanks and recognition. So this is your Joseph Priestley District Board. This photograph was taken at First UU Wilmington at the end of February as we were meeting with the Director for Congregational Life of the Unitarian Universalist Association, who is right there, Reverend Scott Taylor. You'll also see Reverend Joan Van Biesler, who is here. We have Alan Coffey, who is a former member of our board, but is with us today. We have Paul Penson. We have Christian Hartnett. We have Reverend Keith Goheen, our acting president, Dennis Wilnitz, Carla Johnson, Nancy Jansen, and Justice Tuia. Would you all stand? Yeah. Members of the board. It honor to meet and work with and do teleconference after teleconference with them. It is my joy.
Amen.
I also want to have you all see our unified staff. This is all of the people who serve, with the exception of two who are not photographed, myself and Sue Tabone, to have all the people who serve the Unitarian Universalist congregations of the Central East region and the Joseph Priestley district. We have, would you all stand if you're not standing? We have Jillian Conway, Andrew Merck, Christina Sanchez, Joan Priest, Paula Cole-Jones, Sandra Greenfield, Pat Infante, Mark Bernstein, Reverend Renee Rahutsky, Reverend Joan Van Biesler, Andrea Lerner, Reverend Evan Carvel-Zemer, Beth Casebold, and Reverend Susan Carlson. I could run through all the things that we do, and we each have program manager areas and other specializations that we're responsible for, but in reality, we are a team. We are a team dedicated to serving all of our congregations across the district and the region. And, you know, though there is the primary contact we hope you reach out to, one of the things we've agreed as a staff is whoever you call, the answer is never not me.
All right.
The answer is always, how can we help you? And how we help you may be connecting you with your primary contact. But the answer is never not me. Amen?
Amen.
So there's also all these wonderful Joseph Priestley District committees and boards and consultants and coordinators. If you are serving on a Joseph Priestley District committee, if you're an adjunct staff consultant, if you're a member of a cluster council, or you're one of our cluster coordinators, would you please stand up? There is this image that the Joseph Priestley District is me. Sometimes there's the image that it's the board. The reality is that we are the Joseph Priestley District. And there's another reality. We are also the Central East region, Central East Regional Group of the UUA. The JPD is the Central East Regional Group, and an even deeper reality, we are the UUA.
Amen.
It is our Unitarian Universalist Association. We are the UUA. And if you haven't seen all the people, and if you weren't standing this year, and you'd like to be standing next year, please come see me or Dennis after this meeting. We have plenty of opportunity. But it is only through the support of our congregations that we have the privilege of supporting you. I love that about us. I love that you support us so that we can support you. What a beautiful metaphor that is for relationship. That it is your congregation's support of the annual program fund, your congregation's participation in clusters and district programming, your leadership's congregation participation in helping to build these connections across your congregational lines. And I am deeply grateful that we have the capacity to walk with you on this journey called Unitarian Universalism. Thank you.